Well, hello there. It's time for Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or the Philosopher's Stone. 2M2, You're a Wizard, Harry. Music by John Williams, orchestrated by Conrad Pope. And this is a great cue. It's 80 bars long, not the 20 or so bars in the live-to-picture version. So this is the original. And it's brilliant. It's filled with lots of really interesting chord progressions, lovely orchestration, really delicate, very specific sort of things going on. And we'll deal with the full orchestral score a little bit later, but I'm just going to talk about the music itself here. So we start off, broadly speaking, in sort of G Hungarian minor. So that's G harmonic minor, but with a raised fourth. Instead of... So, which is sort of quite a witchy sort of thing anyway, isn't it? So that's the sort of thing that we've been dealing with. Yes, so that's the sort of thing. We're starting off with violins flautando. So they're going to be sort of a wispy light string. So perhaps sometimes they kind of don't use all the bow hairs. They kind of like turn the bow slightly away from the body. So you use a sort of minimal amount of hair, and then you kind of play a little bit on the fingerboard, and you get this sort of flautando type effect, which is interesting, a sort of wispiness. You can actually do trem with harmonics as well, which is even more weird. But I think it would just be a bit too sort of scratchy if that was the case, because you'd be doing false harmonics, and then they'd be 2 octaves high, and then you'd sort of have to think about what instruments you're doing them for, and all of that, getting much too complicated. But then we have these amazing sort of unison doubling. So we've got sort of viola's trem, but then the cellos are pizzicatoing, and the harp is also accenting that, or accentuating that. Then a double bass pizz, but just the first desk, this sort of very delicate light orchestration that Conrad Pope is known for. And then we have these bassoons just on their own, which is sort of perhaps, you know, doing a similar thing that what they do a little bit later on, dyadic, but mostly, you know, and then we got that sort of German 6. And little harp sort of interjection, and then we're into some woodwind territory here as well. So we've got Celeste, all the block chordal harmonizations. It's all sort of minor chords, either a minor second or a minor third. Minor second or a major second going from each other, or sort of an augmented second. Fair enough. You know, all sorts of different things, with a little bit of sort of triadic, tertial sort of features like that. That sort of thing, which occurs quite often. And broadly speaking, we're still in sort of Hungarian minor territory, and then it sort of ends on the dominant, a sort of G minor 6, like that, with little thematic fragments, little sort of touches of sort of motifs going on. And then we have this sort of prideful strings thing, which is sort of rather warm and delectable as well. Like that, which is lovely. I don't know why I've done that. I think it's just sort of bit sort of strange, but I like this sort of mixed mode, like that, with it's very sort of Schubert, with that sort of E flat, like that. Then we're back into a sort of E flat territory there. I think I've just sort of done something a bit strange there. I'm not quite sure why. I'm just going to put that, not the whole inversion, just so it's even more clear. And I've done sort of, you know, done this. It's a little bit ambiguous because it's dyadic, but broadly speaking, it sort of shifts from actually B minor to C, and then back to sort of, you know, over G. Boom, almost sort of C flat, really, which is interesting as well, with this sort of dominant sort of pedal going on in the violas at that point. Little sort of cello, which then sort of introduces us to the next brilliant orchestrational texture here. So we've got amazing thing. So this is something that you get in Shostakovich, weirdly, where you have a pizzicato and a trill at the same time. It's very effective, even in just a quartet, incredibly. You get this sort of, the bite of the initial trill with the pizz, and the trill sort of, sustaining all the way through. So that's a really lovely, lovely texture. So we've got this sort of B with a flat 6 type thing going on at that point, because of this. And then brilliant chord progression. So we're in a sort of dominant sort of F7 sharp 11 into B. And then it's sort of, a G flat augmented. And then this amazing thing. F sharp 7 add 2. With lots of appoggiaturas as well. That sort of F sharp minor with a major 7. It's almost sort of Darth Vader-esque, isn't it? That is amazing. I love that. F sharp minor, the major 7 going to C minor. It's just so improbable. I mean, it works absolutely voice leading wise. You've got. So the only sort of weird jump, I suppose, is that bass. But everything else works really, really beautifully. Again, with these little sort of flute interjections as well. That's not obvious from there. Solu. There we go. With a bit of flute going on. And this is all sort of clarinets and bassoons there, which are sort of accentuating the same sort of thing sometimes. The bassoon actually cuts out at that point. So wonderful chord progression, and then we're into this sort of rather strange sort of thing. It still feels Hungarian minor in G. Let me just play it on the piano. But it's like a dominant version of it. It just feels a bit more... like that. It feels a bit more dominant. So that sort of resolves sort of onto a G minor dyad. And then we're back into that texture that we had before as well, this sort of mysterious sort of idea. And it's all full of these... like that. So really interesting in terms of the way it's sort of done. They're sort of almost in pairs. Like that. And then going from B flat, which is not the same, because it should go to... but actually it goes... like that as well. So it's surprising. And then suddenly it goes from that chord, that F minor with a major 7 chord, to B minor. Which is amazing. Incredible. So literally a tritone away. And then even then we've got our B minor with a major 7th. Notice I didn't do a pitch class set for that because it doesn't really need one at that point. I only use it when it's so sort of unfathomable that I want to kind of then work out whether chords relate to each other. And, I don't need it here because it clearly is just a minor with a major 7th chord. I'm sure John Williams has never thought about pitch class sets in his entire life. Although you never know, I suppose. And so then we got a repeat of this sort of prideful theme. Like that, which is brilliant. It's such a fun ditty. But listen to this bass line whilst that's going along in counterpoint. And it's amazing when you play it. Whoops, sorry. When you play it with it, it's really rather remarkable. It's this sort of really ominous sort of thing going on in the background, almost like a tummy rumbling orchestral effect. So I'm going to call it the tummy rumble. It's where something's gurgling in your gut and you're not quite sure why, but something's gurgling down there. I suppose the only other thing would be an amusingly put on double bass, but I just don't think it would quite work at that register, although it would be quite fun to do to add. Anyway, I digress. We're then into this sort of interesting chord here, because if you see, it's like basically a sort of pair of minor seconds, but a major third apart. So it's that sort of pitch class set, 4/7, but it's just spaced out really interestingly. And it just sort of grows, I suppose. It just doubles. The D's just doubled. Oh, there. And then basically it's sort of B7 sharp 9, I guess, that sort of thing. That sort of thing. It's not really a flat 10, but if it could be a flat 10, that's what it would be. In other words, a sort of a flat 3 and a major 3 as well. We've got that sort of mixed mode. Sort of really interesting sort of texture. And then we really do have a 3/3 chord, a sort of A, C and D flat. And then suddenly we're into E minor. Such a surprising modulation. It's really interesting when you hear it on the recording. How it transitions those sorts of things. Really, really fascinating. And here, you know, how is it achieved? We've got violin 2's horn 1 and 2 stopped. We've got violas, but with trombones with consort. Again, it's sort of mixed timbre effects, which is extremely effective. Then a sort of sudden change 2 bars later with this flute clarinet sort of thing, again with sort of synths going on. And then synth wind effects take over. We've got the sort of harp, which is just doing, you know, E minor harmonic. And then we're suddenly into Hedwig's theme. At that point, same before all the way through, which I love this bit because I've been going on about it. Sorry. Absolutely fantastic. It's just so jazz. And then, as we know, that amazing sort of neo-Riemannian transformation, or neo-Riemann transformation. And here, again, a sort of F sharp 7 flat 9. It does change from time to time as well, which is interesting. Then we're into a sort of a lovely sort of Americana moment, I like to call it. It's real Americana. It's this sort of, you know, suddenly going to rich jazz, but then suddenly into chordal harmony as well, or suspended harmony. You know, I'd imagine I'd have gone into a B flat there. Interestingly, John Williams chose to do a C. Maybe the C is important. I don't know why. And then suddenly, what on earth has just happened? So we've gone from this sort of glorious, sort of beautiful sort of little section which is just, again, sort of pure jazz ballad. Whoa, B flat with an add 2, and then into B minor. It's just unbelievable. Just extraordinary. So it's amazing. It's just a phrase modulation, basically. So there's absolutely zero preparation whatsoever. It's sort of going from essentially a sort of flat 1 into 1, or a sort of sharp 7 into 1 type of cadence. It's sort of modal cadence, or a sort of completely unconnected cadence, really. But then we've just got harmonic minor, essentially, or I suppose a little bit of a mix of melodic as well. So sort of harmonic minor mixolydian, let's call it, just because there are no A sharps there. So, but yeah, let's call it mixolydian. Oh no, hold a sec, it can't be, because that would be a major. It's just a Dorian mode, isn't it, I think? Yes, it's a Dorian mode. I just had to think about that for a minute. B Dorian. There we go. So yeah, just using scale patterns that sort of correlate with things. Nice diminished scale, octatonic. Then takes over harmonic melodic minor, and then Lydian, octatonic, and then a Lydian mode. And then we got this sort of amazing sort of C Phrygian. And then like that. Oh, sorry, actually B major. So it's almost like a little TS to Picardy at the end as well, with this sort of little sort of appoggiatura right at the end, which is just fantastic. What a great little cue. It's just so full of just these wonderful little chord sequences, which are incredibly surprising. Very surprising modulations. The sort of dichotomy between this sort of, prideful G major, completely all sort of primary triads, essentially. Okay, there's a French 6 in there. By the way, that's E flat with a flat 5. So, like that. Absolute classic, proper French 6, in fact, with a regular resolution. But then we've also got this sort of amazingly brilliant chord progressions where we're going from that sort of B flat minor 7, and then like that as well, which is just extraordinary. So let's have a look at the orchestra, because we've done a bit of that. Oh, I didn't have it prepared. That's strange. I usually do, but there we go. Let's just open that. So we'll just have a quick view of these things. So yeah, synth Celeste. So obviously that's sounding an octave higher than written. Obviously it's just note performer. Nice bit of orchestral differentiation with just the wind doing the harmony. Notice the tremolo. Yeah, so again, it's probably quite important to do. So here with the flutes added to what we've already got, but just notice right at the end there's a little addition of the clarinet where it sort of goes, just supports that lowest flute note. Just a slight timbre change. As well, an interesting sort of boom, bop, bop, boom, ba boom, boom, ding, boom, 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 like that. Just what a weird rhythm to do tremolo like that. Then we're into this a little bit. just straightforward doubling. Clarinets. Yeah, worth pointing out that we've just got this going on. Are there any other doublings? Yes, there are, with the Celeste. Like that as well. Interesting that it goes to a C flat there, so they'd have to have a B extension, a B flat extension. And then we're back into more blends as well. And I love that. It's just so fantastic, the way that it sort of works here with the pizzicato. I just love that. I'm not doing it properly in terms of the trills, but I couldn't be bothered to go into the playback. But you get the idea. And again, that sort of harmony is just fantastic. A sharp minor add to. And then back into the same texture. Yeah, I've missed out a chord actually here. Which is amazing. So it's that. So C diminished with an added ninth. That's interesting, isn't it? I'm going to write C dim, add 9, but make it with an E flat in the bass. Doesn't like that, but never mind. That is what it is. And then we're into the dum da da dum bum ba dum bum bum as well. So I'm sort of playing it from the orchestral score on the other screen that you can't see, but just sort of that sort of rumbling cello. That's worth seeing in score because it has this really lovely sort of powerful idea. Let's have a look at it in more detail. So we've got the chord here in the brass, but they're just doing what the tremolo strings are doing. Like that as well. So let's just carry on for the time being. Whoops. Whoa. What's that noise? That's extraordinary. I think I did something very strange there. I don't quite know what happened there. I was just trying to play it. This is bar 54. Here we go. I won't click on it. Here comes that amazing Just going to check a note, actually. Da-di-dum-bum. That must be a D. Must be a G, but a D. But let me just double check. I should have checked on the... When I upload this later, I'll obviously just check orally with the recording, just to sort of orally check it, because it could just be a mistake in the sketch. Yeah, it's a D. But I don't know how I missed that. That's ridiculous. But there we go. Mistakes do creep in occasionally. Yeah, I want to show you this string bit from 69 because it's just really beautiful. It's just really well thought out. I'm just going to get rid of sort of extraneous things which you don't really need, just to make it a little bit easier to read. Sometimes we do use double staves and things like that, but here, no double basses to begin with. I'll just play the full thing. The little touches here, so for example, where it goes up here, the viola is actually lower than the cello at that point, of course. Then it sustains that D flat. So we get that really nice full chord. Notice the configuration of sort of thumb, third finger, fifth finger, if it was sort of pianistically done. Again, it's a sort of Brahms spacing that I call it. I don't know why I call it that, but it's just funny. So it freely goes from unison to doubling, you know, to divisi, unison to divisi, where needed. Notice the seventh followed by the third. That's a very common... you know, the violas would be playing the B flat if it wasn't just for the fact there's a little bit of an appoggiatura there. And notice that the spacing around here is nicely done. So it's quite a nice space in terms of where it lies. Very sort of DSCH at that bit, isn't it? And then that change of texture where we have that little sort of sprinkle of glockenspiel or orchestral bells as well. That's also nice as well, where we have this sort of almost sort of, they'll play it sort of, you know, it avoids writing it like that, but they would play it like that. So with a, you know, down bow, up bow, down bow. But I quite like the fact we got this little triplet thing going on as well, and then a little splash of colour right at the end with a pizzicato, but on the offbeat as well, and then that little celeste as well. Really, really lovely, really wonderful orchestration, I think. Very clever and brilliant. Because if you look at it here, and you were sort of trying to go, okay, who's playing what, it becomes a lot more of a sort of problematic exercise in terms of, like, you know, when does the bass come in and what's doing what. That would definitely have to be viola there. You can kind of almost see it, actually, in terms of the green voice too. But then when to divide as well, and when the double bass sort of is subtracted from that as well. But yeah, amazing that little sort of change of sort of textural with the oboes, clarinets and glock coming in as well. Don't forget that's 2 octaves higher than written, so very, very high. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that little sort of expose of this cue. It's quite a short one really in some ways, even though it's 80 bars long, but it's nothing like the length of time that it took me to do the last video. So many apologies, but back on track I think at this point. And so yeah, very much looking forward to bringing you the next one after this in the film, Harry Potter film. might occasionally just sort of digress away from the film, go do something else and come back to it before work starts on Attack of the Clones a little bit later on. So that's it for now. Bye for now.